The fight that everyone is looking forward to is coming up this Saturday night at UFC 298. You have Ilia Topuria challenging Alexander Volkanovski for the 145-pound featherweight UFC belt. Let's look back at both of these guys' fights and let's determine who's going to win this one. And we'll start off with Topuria. Topuria doesn't really have that many UFC fights. He really doesn't have that many. He's only got 6. He has 6 UFC fights. And now he's going for the title. In his earlier career, his professional fights that he had before the UFC, he won all of them, right? He's 14-0. So he won 6, 7, 8, which I should have known off the bat, because if he won 6 in the UFC and he's 14-0, then that means he won the other 8 prior. So he's 8-0 coming into the UFC. And in his prior to the UFC career, he won almost every single fight by submission. Triangle choke, rear naked choke, guillotine choke, anaconda, triangle straight arm bar, and then only in his last fight before going into the UFC, he won by KO due to punches. 7 out of his 8 pre-UFC fights were won by submission. And then you go into his UFC career, and he beat Yusuf Zalal by decision. Right? It was basically where he out-grappled Zalal. That was how he did it. He just was the better grappler. And he didn't really show too much in the striking. Then he fought Damon Jackson, and he just went first in every single exchange. He was quicker than Jackson, hit him with body shots, and then cracked him against the cage with the right hand. That ended that fight. And then he fought Jai Herbert. And this is where it all changed for Ilia Topuria, or I should say it almost changed. He fought Jai Herbert up a weight class. He went up to 155 for this fight. And Herbert had an 8-inch reach advantage. And he basically got knocked out by Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert, in the middle of an exchange, landed a head kick where the shin went flush with the head and it whipped Topuria's head back, nearly knocking him out. And Topuria smartly grabbed on for dear life and then started wrestling him like a bull. He went from matador to bull just to avoid being knocked out. It was a smart decision. It kept him in the fight. And then when Topuria got up, Herbert clipped him with a knee and then a left hand. And then later in the round, he took another flush straight knee, which knocked out his mouthpiece for the second time in the fight, and he got clocked with more big punches. Then in round 2, Topuria hit him with the body shot to the right hand KO. And that was it. That was the whole fight. So basically, Topuria nearly gets knocked out in round 1. It gets hit with everything but the kitchen sink. And then in round 2, he abruptly ends the fight with the body shot right hand combination. After that, Topuria fought against Bryce Mitchell. He won the striking battle in round 1, but got taken down for the last minute. And in round 2, Mitchell landed a combo with a head kick in it, but then Topuria responded with an uppercut to the right hand combo. Right, this is really the bread and butter from Topuria. Uppercut to right hand for the knockdown, and from out there he out-grappled Mitchell and submitted him with the arm triangle. It's worth noting that Mitchell did show the knee and also the head kick, and Topuria was susceptible to it. It didn't land. It didn't, land in a meaningful way, but it's just worth noting. Then in the fight against Josh Emmett, which is the previous fight for Topuria, that's Topuria's last fight. It's the one that got him this title shot. This was basically a boxing match. Emmett and Topuria, Emmett is not gonna, he doesn't kick too much. He doesn't grapple. And Topuria was just content to box him. So it was basically a 5-round boxing match, where Topuria knocked Emmett down twice in round 2, nearly ended the fight there. Then in round 3, Emmett tried some leg kicks, but every time Emmett tried to leg kick him, Topuria countered with overhands, And it just wasn't worth it for Emmett. It's like, okay, I'm not going to kick you in the leg if every time I kick you in the leg, I get cracked with a straight right hand. Then in round 3, Topuria started kicking in the leg, and then he knocked down Emmett with the uppercut and nearly ended the fight again. Landed another uppercut that took half of Emmett's consciousness away, and the fight was really probably should have been called at the end of round 4. But then Emmett came back in round 5, landed one good shot, and then Topuria took him down and out-grappled him for the rest of the round and easily won the decision. So what can you say about Topuria? He pretty easily beat everybody except for one fighter, and that was Jai Herbert, where Jai Herbert had an 8-inch reach advantage and it was up a weight class. So the kryptonite to beating Topuria is to be way, way, way bigger. If you have a massive reach advantage, both in hand and leg reach, you can land the knee, and you can also land a head kick mid-exchange. That's what we can see. We also know that you can land, from the Mitchell fight, you can also land leg kicks on Topuria. But it may not be worth trying for a leg kick at the expense of getting knocked out by Topuria. So what is Topuria susceptible to most? It would be the head kick, particularly mid-exchange, like when Jai Herbert landed it, and the straight knee, which also was shown by Mitchell in his fight. Then on the other side, you take Volkanovski. In his last fight against Islam Makhachev, Volk got knocked out by the head kick, followed up by punches. But not only did he get hit by the head kick that put him away, Islam also landed another head kick earlier in that round. And this was only a 1-round fight, right? It ended at the 3-minute, 6-second mark, so it didn't go on for too long. But Islam landed 2 head kicks in that span. So we see that just like Topuria, Volkanovski is clearly susceptible to the head kick. That's how he lost his only UFC fight of his career. 2 head kicks, 1 round. It's also worth noting that this isn't the first time someone landed a head kick on Volkanovski. Yair Rodriguez, in the fight before the Islam loss, which the second Islam loss, which was courtesy of the head kick, Yair Rodriguez landed the head kick in round 3. But then Volkanovski clipped Rodriguez and then ended the fight with ground and pound. There was also a massive headbutt from Volkanovski in there. But the point is, Volkanovski is also very susceptible to getting hit by the head kick. So you have 2 fighters going against each other. And both of them can be knocked out by a head kick. The problem is, neither of these guys throw head kicks. You have 2 guys who have been, well, Volkanovski was definitely knocked out by the head kick. It was just a few follow-up punches that ended it after Islam hit him. And then you have Topuria nearly get knocked out. He was like 1 shot from getting put away by Jai Herbert when Jai Herbert landed the head kick on him. So both of these guys can get cracked by the head kick and get knocked down, which Topuria was knocked down by Herbert. And Volkanovski was knocked down and then finished by Makhachev. But none of these guys throw head kicks. So what do you really do there? I don't think either of them are going to throw a head kick in this whole fight. Now what? What else are we going to look at here? Is it going to be a straight boxing match? In a straight boxing match, I don't think Islam is going to stand in the pocket and trade heavy shots. I think that I think that Volkanovski is going to kind of take the approach he took mostly with the Max Holloway and the Max Holloway fights, that he's going to land leg kicks from the outside, and he's going to use his long reach, which Volk does have a long reach. He has those, a short body, but super, super long arms. Volkanovski actually had a reach advantage against Max Holloway. Max Holloway being the longer, taller fighter, but no, really, Volkanovski has the longer arms pretty surprisingly. So does that mean that Volkanovski with the longer arms is going to have advantages that Herbert had? I mean, Herbert really landed some punches, but it was mostly the head kick that he got mid-exchange, and then it was the knee. But does Volkanovski have the length in the legs where it'll really present the knee? It could be, but actually I think Max actually landed a big knee on Volkanovski in one of their fights, so maybe Volkanovski is susceptible to the knee. So you have these two guys, Volkanovski and Topuria, who are fighting each other, and they're both susceptible to the same weapons, the straight knee and the head kick, but neither one of them really throws many knees or head kicks. If you look at the grappling, they're both really good. But I don't think you can compare Topuria, where Topuria was, temporarily out-grappled in the end of round 1 by Emmett. I'm sorry, in the end of round 1 against Mitchell. Bryce Mitchell did, manage to get on top of him and hold him there for a minute at the end of round 1. But if you look at Volkanovski essentially was able to stifle the grappling of Islam Makhachev for an entire fight. And in parts of it, you would even say that Volkanovski was able to dominate the ground and pound, especially in the end of the 5th round in the first fight against Makhachev. And then you have, on the other side, Topuria has incredible ground and pound too. So what do you do? What do you do if you're Ilia and you're not going to throw a head kick, which I think he should throw? I think he should practice the head kick, because if you watch that Islam fight where Volkanovski got knocked out with 2 head kicks in 1 round, and you don't try to practice the head kick for this fight, I think you're making a big mistake. But what are you going to do? If you're not going to throw the head kick, let's say Ilia Topuria is not comfortable throwing the head kick against Volkanovski, what's your path to victory? I guess you want it to be a very close in-range boxing match where you can land your uppercut to right-hand combo. But Volkanovski's probably too smart, and when I look back at this fight, there's the vibe of the fight, and there's, well, what's the greatest chance of actually happening based on their previous fight history. If you look at the vibe, I think the vibe is that Topuria is going to win. As the MMA guru said, imagine if Conor McGregor never beat Jose Aldo. And all that trash talk and all that getting under Aldo's skin was for nothing. And McGregor is just a regular fighter. Sometimes the energy just is what it is. What happens if Sugar Sean doesn't beat Sterling? And I know it's questionable whether Sugar Sean is as big of a star as we really think he is. But putting all that aside, I mean, I think he's pretty much the real deal. And if he doesn't land that knockout against Aljamain Sterling, then what do we have? I mean, it was just there's the magic leading up to the fight where it seems like one guy just has him. And it seems like Topuria has all the momentum. And for whatever reason, it just seems like Topuria is confident beyond confidence. There's confident, and then there's Ilia Topuria. But Volk is pretty confident too. Volk doesn't really seem to be too phased. He's talking in exactly the same fashion he talked in all the fights against Max Holloway. So, but I mean, the vibe is definitely leaning towards Topuria. But if you look at it and you really break down all the fights and where are these guys' weaknesses and strengths, I think Topuria's path to victory would be the head kick and the knee, but I think that's also Volkanovski's path to victory. I don't think either of them are going to do it. And then if you're going to take it down to the wrestling, I don't think you can say that Topuria is going to out-grapple Volk. I think they're both really, really good. Right? There was also the Ryan Hall fight, which I forgot to mention from the Topuria fight history, where he wasn't the least bit phased by the grappling of Ryan Hall, and he knocked him out with ground and pound, while Hall is diving and around the floor like a dolphin. He finished him with the ground and pound. He put him out cold. How many people put someone out cold with a ground and pound? And it wasn't like he was standing up, raining down vicious blows either. He was crouched down and still put Ryan Hall fast asleep. If I was a betting man, I would have to say the winner of this fight's going to be Volkanovski by decision. Ilia can try. He's gonna be trying for the uppercut right hand combo, but if I had to bet on the one thing that Volkanovski is training going into this fight, it's how not to get knocked out by the uppercut right hand combo from Topuria. If there's one sequence he's training for in expectation of it being thrown against him in this fight, it's that. So do I think that Topuria is going to land that for the knockout? No, I don't think so. I mean, it's possible. Topuria won a lot of fights that way. At least 3 or 4. But I don't think Volkanovski's going to lose like that. I think whichever guy can perfect the head kick or the straight knee can do the most damage, but I don't think either of them are going to try. Despite the fact that the signs are that Topuria feels like he's going to win the fight, and that's what the air is kind of saying, and Islam just beat Volkanovski. Volkanovski lost 2 of his last 3 to Islam, and now he there was all the controversy about, oh, he was drinking every day, and he was feeling bad about himself, and he needs fighting to stay focused. I think all that just needs to be thrown out the window. I think that Volkanovski is going to come ready for this fight. He's going to be ready to handle all of Topuria's biggest combinations. And I think he's just going to outpoint Topuria. That's where I see this one going. This is the Straight Up Fight Network.